Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Unqualified Film Bros podcast. We are back once again talking about four films in one episode, which I think is a a group record for us. Granted, they are all short films. Ben, you're thinking about something. You're thinking
Well,
we've done four
technically, when we
before.
do when we do like trivia and stuff, we're thinking about like tons of
That's true.
films.
That's true. All right, comment withdrawn.
Actually,
Don't say that phrase too loudly. Aiden will show up.
oh God.
So we are talking about the four new Wes Anderson, Roald Dahl short films on Netflix. A little teaser for the end of the episode there, where I say where you can watch the film that we talked about, or in this case, films.
It's
Um,
Netflix.
it is Netflix, and they are all there. So, the wonderful story of Henry Sugar, The Swan, The Rat Catcher, and Poison. I think we all watched The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar first. We all see Ben's Zoom name here tonight. So, let's
The
start with
most notable one.
the longest of the four, Henry Sugar. Gentlemen, what'd you guys think?
Well, I think the first thing that I want to note is like even though there's four different shorts, they're clearly all in a very similar style. The Wes Anderson pseudo stage production. Uh, they're basically like there's very little editing. The scenes themselves are literally like a complex stage production where things go up and things go down, things separate. I think they actually did that. Wes Anderson's not the kind of guy that would use visual effects for something like that. They would just do it practically. So for all intents and purposes, it's kind of cool to see this sort of thing. You had it a little bit in Asteroid City. I mean, there were essentially stage get-ups where things were being placed down in Asteroid City. It was clearly like a stage setup. So I guess Wes Anderson's going through that phase uh, um, of wanting to be on the stage and directing that, except he's stuck in the indie film industry. I don't know. But it is cool to see. Um, it's a unique perspective on film. At least something that's not Wes Anderson is in that indie category, but he's also very popular because he's like the top of that indie category, or at least one of them. Um, and it was cool to see him approach this. Now, going to Henry Sugar, I really liked it the most. I think it had a lot of time to develop because it's the longest of them. It's 40 minutes versus like the others are 17, 20 minutes or whatever. Um, and I really like the story. You can sort of see where it's going. They're essentially like I don't want to say cliche stories, but like stories that have been told before with a unique perspective. Somebody going, especially like this, who's born rich, had no like inclinations in life, decides to dedicate all of his time, the one thing he's passionate about, to make money, and then he realizes that he doesn't want to. He wants to just donate it. Um, it's an interesting sort of uh, what do you call it? Um, what is the Buddhist thing? What you're trying enlightenment, that's it. It's an enlightenment tale. You ascend past those material means. I mean, clearly the yogi is along those lines, philosophically or religiously. So he alleviates himself of that, even though he was born into that, even though that's all he ever wanted, and he dedicates himself to something else. It's a nice tale. I mean, I think a lot of these have these simple tales, but told with a very in a unique style, and also with a unique perspective, given the way that they sort of take these stories and be the narrators themselves a lot of the time. They're sort of doing the subconscious of what they're thinking about so that they don't actually have to say it, but you know what they're thinking about.
Mhm.
Yeah. Especially with Henry Sugar, where you sort of have the narrative go into a deeper sort of sub narrative, and then again into a sub narrative where you start with Rafe Fiennes as Roald Dahl, and then you go into the story of Henry Sugar getting to this library, finding the textbook or workbook, and then you go deeper still into the narrative with Dev Patel and Ben
Hmm.
Kingsley.
Inception.
So it's you beat me to it. Um, but you get, you know, a multi-layered story, which, with short films, a lot of the time you get something that's sort of surface level so that you can communicate your narrative in a, you know, shorter format. But what Henry Sugar does is it allows Wes Anderson to play on those different levels and create three different worlds that he can experiment in and that he can sort of project with these really, really fun and unique characters.
And just to interrupt for a second, I want
Please.
to point out that I think the stage sort of get up with this with the film, it really helps because they basically, even though they're technically different stories, they literally meld right into each other with the stages literally, separating or something coming in to create the next scene. So it really creates the illusion that it's all one story, even though it's different parts and different people.
Yeah, there's a lot of overlap there. I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I'll say about the short stories, and I love the format of short stories, whether they're in writing or even short films like this, because I think there has to be a certain level of trust that the writer and the director have with the audience, that they know that they can't say everything because it's supposed to be short, and so there's a lot that is unsaid, and so some of the best stories, like the ones that we saw for tonight, are wonderful because they still move fairly quickly. Some of them are a little bit slower. We talked about that over text before jumping on, but you know, there isn't maybe a lot to interpret from it, but there's a lot to infer from the dialogue or lack of dialogue. And I thought that, I mean, that's something I love about the format.
Yeah, and when you get, you talk about lack of dialogue, two people speaking, monologue, one person speaking, all four of these films are narrated on screen by whether it's, Ray Fiennes or Dev Patel or Richard Ayoade. You've got narrators who are part of the story, and when they're playing their role within the context of the narrative, you have great moments where they're telling you what's happening as you're watching it happen in the background, and then as they get involved, they say a line of their dialogue outside of the monologue, and then say like a little quip like "I said" or "I joked," and then keep going. And I think what Wes Anderson does in so many of his films, maybe not early on, maybe not like Bottle Rocket, but certainly, we talked about Asteroid City a few months ago. Um, you know, these four short films, French Dispatch a couple years ago. Wes Anderson's style of dialogue is so tight, and it requires a very particular type of performance and performer to deliver the exact both inflection and desired effect with the words on the page in a way that flows unlike any other screenwriter that I've ever really heard. He's so unique in his ability to communicate story verbally, and what we get here,
Mo-
especially in Henry Sugar. Ben, if I could just finish my
yeah, yeah.
thought here. Um,
No.
but just to see how Wes, as writer, director, and producer, with basically unilateral creative control over this, taking stories that aren't his originally and still being able to put his spin on the speaking component is a testament to his strength as a unique filmmaker and his sort of ability to take adapted work and still make it so Wes Anderson. We said Asteroid City was the most Wes Anderson movie he's ever done. These shorts are, close to that, and they're not even original works.
Well, I think to that point, it's not even just that it's Wes Anderson's like unique, artistic vision. It's that Roald Dahl and Wes Anderson are like a match made in heaven. They're both extremely weird
Well, we saw
storytellers.
that in Fantastic Mr. Fox
Yeah.
15 years ago.
I mean, it's obvious that Wes Anderson is clearly influenced by Roald Dahl and his storytelling, so it just works. But I think also the narration really keeps the influence of it, the actual short stories, the works of the literary works, things written down on pages. So it fits that it's like a visualization of like a story rather than just a complete adaptation. It feels like he really wants to keep that essence of reading a story, but someone's reading it to you with this, visual presentation. I mean, it fits with the stage too. And I think Wes Anderson's dialogue, like you said, it's so tight and it fits that sort of stage persona because you don't get to edit in stage, you don't get to edit in theater. You have to do everything correctly. You have to be tight. You have to know your lines. And these people obviously do. And it seems like, I know there's edits here and there, but it seems like a lot of this stuff is actually done in one take. You have people walking through these complex sets, but they seem like complete sets that just basically operate the way that you would want, the same way that you would do it in a stage performance. And I think it's like Max said, there's not a lot to take from it, but it is entertaining. The performances are great. It's just amazing what they've done with these sets, that they basically work. I mean, there's no editing for a lot of them. They basically just function, live when they're filming. So it's very impressive to me, and I think it really works for his style. It works for the flow of the film. And we could talk about the others too. This is something that's obviously universal for all of them. They all sort of have been filmed in this style, filmed in this narration motif. And I think it works for all of them because obviously they are adapted from Roald Dahl short stories.
So let's talk about the other ones. As much as we all really enjoyed Henry Sugar, we'll talk more about it in a minute. But the other three, first and foremost, I'm curious if you guys can remember the order in which you watched, because I think we all watched Henry Sugar first. But which did you watch second, third, and fourth?
I watched Ratcatcher second. I watched Poison third, and I watched The Swan last.
I was the exact same as Ben.
Wow, that's
I
impressive.
did Ratcatcher second, so we're the same there, but I think I did The Swan third and then Poison fourth. And I watched Henry Sugar a few nights ago, and then the next day I watched Ratcatcher, Swan, and Poison like in succession, one right after the other after the other. Not to brag.
Mm-hmm.
So since we all did Ratcatcher second, I want to talk about Ralph Fiennes first and foremost because we've talked about the style, but I think this is probably the most out there performance we have in these four films. And I want to hear your thoughts about him.
In Ratcatcher?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's out there, but he's not that out there. I feel like Ray Fiennes can transform himself pretty well.
Well, yeah, I mean the guy played Voldemort.
Actually, yeah, that's a good point. He's kind of like Wormtail. Think about
Yeah,
That's the vibe I got too.
yeah.
it. So maybe he just like he rubbed up against. I don't even remember who played Wormtail because he had so
Timothy
much makeup.
Spall.
Okay, glad you know that. Uh, maybe he just rubbed up against him. He's like, hey, how do you do a rat person? Um, but yeah, no, I mean it's a little bit out there, but I feel like it's not that far out there for
It's
Ray
not that
Fiennes.
far out there for him, but for Wes,
Oh wait, I mean it's a Roald Dahl story though. I feel like he just embraced material. I mean, a lot of this stuff, like if you think about it, it's not his material. He's adapting it.
right?
He's putting his spin on it. But I don't think he ever had any illusions to change anything, any illusions to like really put his own soul into it. They're Roald Dahl stories with his presentation, you know. Um,
That's a good way of putting it.
and I think that's completely fine. You know, that's just respecting someone's work and putting your own style on it. But yeah, I mean, all the performances were good. I don't think there was any of them that were I was like, man, I was never seen you like this before. Um, oh God, what is it? Michael Keaton in Much Ado About Nothing, the film version by Kenneth
Michael
Branagh.
Keaton in The Flash.
Do you know what I'm talking about though? I forget his name. Um,
Unqualified.
Barf. I don't know. It's some stupid name. Let's see. Much Ado About Nothing. I have to find this. Characters.
All right, Max, while he's doing that,
Dogberry, that's it.
Dogberry.
Dogberry.
That at least is Berry spelled like berry or is it Bury?
It's Berry.
Okay.
like
So
the fruit.
yeah.
Oh,
Now Michael Keaton kind of looks like and acts like a rat catcher. So that's what I was thinking about.
you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
But it's also the strangest performance I've ever seen him do, which is why I was also
Stranger than Birdman?
yes, Stranger Than Birdman. I
God.
encourage you to watch it. It's got, I think, Denzel Washington,
In
you know, fantastic and Shakespearean stuff. And then it also has, get this, Keanu Reeves.
Is it a good movie though?
What do you mean by it's
Hey,
good because it's directed by Kenneth Branagh, but some parts are like ridiculous. Very
Fair enough.
speaking of Keanu, I had a chance to go see him perform with Dogstar tonight.
oh, his music
Yeah, he's playing, or he played at Toad's Place in New Haven.
is much better than some of the other actor musicians like Johnny Depp. Johnny
Jared
Depp,
Leto.
Jared Leto actually has a band, so I can't criticize him.
So does Keanu. Dogstar. Look him up. Spotify.
Oh yeah, I know Keanu performs, but like Johnny Depp is like really bad. He's got albums with oh Jeff Beck, you know, rest in peace, but he's terrible. He's like a really bad guitarist. Anyway, that has nothing to do with Roald Dahl or Wes Anderson. I just had to put that out there.
Well,
So
now
what
that's
you're
full
saying,
circle,
Jack
going.
Black in School of Rock did what Johnny Depp can't do in real life.
That's
Kind
just
of, yeah.
Okay.
there's a disconnect there.
And mind you, just last thing, Johnny Depp did actually move to LA to become a rock star or a musician or whatever. And Wes Craven saved him, the other Wes, as he put him in Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Anyway, you want to talk about the Swan?
Yeah, Swan was something. I would say
It's the most out there of them.
it's the most out there. Then that's a good way of putting it. Um, I think this was the most fun I've seen Rupert Friend have in a while. I think the last time I saw him before this was as the Grand Inquisitor in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series.
I'm sorry, but the fun is not the way that I would put this one.
I mean, just some of the not even the dialogue or the story itself, but some of the mannerisms that he has and the blocking that he has throughout this story is
It's
it
it's
requires
clear
a
that he's
certain level of physicality that I didn't expect from him. How about that?
It's youthful.
It's youthful. Thank you, Max.
he's got a youthful exuberance.
He's
Maybe because he's
Exude.
playing a grown-up version of a kid who had a traumatic childhood.
Yeah, I mean, notice what he was wearing, right? He had
But
on the tweed jacket or the hunting
the
jacket.
thing that I really just don't like is that it's really unrealistic if you think about it, because he died, and he wouldn't actually grow up to be an adult.
Have
So
you done before, Ben? How would you know?
Yeah, didn't you see a futile and stupid gesture with Will Forte's character
no,
dying, but a future version narrating the who
well,
played the future
that's
version?
just
Now I'm
unrealistic.
looking something up.
Or Jesse Plemons' character in Vice. A little different, but similar idea.
It was Martin
Yeah,
Mull. Martin
he's
Mull
like
played the older version of
Martin Mull,
Doug Kenny.
but Max, he's talking from like the afterlife, isn't he?
I know.
Um, but yeah, I mean, the Swan is a weird one. I,
Mhm.
I have to stop using weird because it's Roald Dahl. Everything is fucking weird, and it's Wes Anderson. If something is not weird, that's weird. Um, but it is the most out there, as I said. You obviously have the adult version of the dead kid with the dead kid reenacting his most traumatizing day of his life into his death. Um, where not only does he have to die, but he also, as someone that is an animal enthusiast, has to watch a swan get murdered. Not great, but he
Yeah.
did save those two ducks, those
Before,
or
just
swan.
so you all know, before we started recording, Ben went off for about, I want to say half an hour. It certainly felt like half an hour
I think it was about
talking about,
45 minutes.
see, talking about how much he, as a viewer, was traumatized by seeing the animated swan get killed.
I was. It's almost it's similar to the pain that I felt watching Isle of Dogs, watching some of those dogs live in horrible conditions. It was heartbreaking.
Hey, speaking of dogs, where's Maggie?
She's in the other house.
Ah,
The
Maggie.
doghouse.
The other house. Be a
I got you,
little
Max. That was funny.
Come on, guys.
this is the jail. I'm in jail. Um
So, how about Poison?
it was a um it was good, I feel like. I don't know, a lot of the short ones I just felt like they were entertaining, but there's not a lot to talk about, I guess.
I disagree, and here's
Okay.
why.
All right.
With a film like Poison, I felt it was the most grounded of the three shorter films. Not that it had much competition in that regard, but we had a very clear narrative. There were very clear stakes. The characters were well defined, and it was a gripping narrative. You know, it was a life and death situation that pulled the audience in right away. We have no reason to root one way or another for Benedict Cumberbatch's character, and yet as humans we can empathize and we want him to survive. And when he's got a snake sleeping on his chest, you know, there's a certain almost visceral reaction out of an audience member where you can sort of feel the same discomfort, put yourself in that situation. At least I did. And, we end up with this tense, you know, 17 minutes or however much of it is tense before the resolution. And, Dev Patel with his narration is sort of keeping the stakes up. Ben Kingsley is, bringing the tension with his delivery of his dialogue. Benedict Cumberbatch has to whisper for most of the film, which, you know, whisper and not move is, you'd think, simple direction, and then you actually have to go on set and do it. And, you had to do it exactly right. So I think Poison, maybe my second favorite of the four, and I'll maybe we'll do rankings, maybe we won't. But yeah, Poison, I would probably be the first one that I'd watch again.
I feel like most of his that he's really just. I mean, there's the aspect of it's the actualization of there's something on my leg, but people take him seriously. But I think the point of it, if I'm searching deeper into it, is this guy thought that there was a snake on his belly, and the entire, you know, radius of him just like did everything they could to make sure that he survived. And then after he realized that there wasn't, he starts shouting racist, epithets at the doctor. It's like it's a hyper realized like fear for some people, and yet the response is completely uh
Over the
wrong,
top.
over the top, like in both circumstances, like all these people doing this before even checking that there was a snake, and also the response from him when there wasn't a snake and he made a remark. So it's a weird one because God, I gotta stop saying it's a weird one. Like it's so bad.
Can we just
But
ask our very well paid editor to
yeah, edit it out.
do
Just edit
just
it out.
every
Look
time
for it.
we'll make a bonus feature for this episode of every time Ben says the word weird.
It's a nebulous one. But yeah, it's honestly it is a strange uh sort of story because nothing actually happens if you think about it. It's just the guy thinks that he's got a snake, and it's very well acted, very well put together. Everyone is worried for his safety, but you realize that it's not an equal exchange near the end. So I think it has the most to say, I guess. I mean, it's not a complex idea, but it it has the most depth to it, I would say. And it does have that element of uh it's probably the scenario where they're able to act the best in terms of performance. You have a lot of drama, you have a lot of exchange. There's a lot more emotional variety for them to sort of work on.
Max?
Yeah, I think that's probably true. I mean, again, I don't think there's that much competition amongst the three short ones. I mean, I think the second would probably be the Swan, in terms of like looking for a deeper meaning out of it, but even then, not much, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only thing I got out of this one is they're torturing this kid, and the kid is worried about the mother swan of the babies, and then he dies the reverse. So it's kind of a poetic injustice, I guess. Everyone dies. It's not like someone gets the karma. But I mean, yeah, they're very emotionally like inspired stories, I guess. It mentions at the end of all of these like his inspiration, where he wrote it, when he wrote it. But yeah, I think it's more like a creative outlet for these sort of emotions than anything groundbreaking to say, which is completely fine. They're short stories after all, and they're short films. So
Yeah, I think what I appreciated perhaps most of or what I appreciated most about this collection of shorts from Wes Anderson is the fact that it felt like, you know, his own unit of storytelling in a way that, he's had many films with many of the same actors, but the fact that there was overlap of, Benedict Cumberbatch was in two, Ben Kingsley was in two, I think.
Well,
uh
you know what that reminds me of is like if you have a stage performance of one X,
yeah,
you
I
know,
mean, you've
typically
got
you would
people
have.
playing multiple roles across multiple films. It felt like an acting troupe,
Mm.
sort of like you would see, Ben, like you just said, with a touring stage production of one acts, where you would see sort of these different actors multiple times, multiple stories, and yet they all fit their characters really well. Benedict Cumberbatch shines as Henry Sugar. You know,
And actually, what this reminded me of, to a degree, is you guys know David Ives, some of his one acts. It has this sort of same charm. There's some of them that have narration. Um, they're a similar kind of weird, I guess. So that sort of struck me because it's like filming one acts essentially, these shorts.
yeah, and with the presentation of the narration on screen and as part of the narrative, it does feel like both a staged performance and, Ben, like you said earlier, the idea of having a story read to you, which, a lot of us, certainly myself, I grew up, my parents read stories to me. So there's almost a level of comfort there and nostalgia for hearing a Roald Dahl story being told to you while you're sitting down and relaxing. So that was nice. That was fun. It was certainly one of the more significant elements that I took away from it. But I'm glad that we talked about these four. I think that this is a unique undertaking for Wes Anderson and the actors he worked with. I'd certainly like to see maybe some other directors, writer directors, give something like this a try. Maybe not with adapting works by Roald Dahl, but a collection of shorts from some of our favorite directors. I think would be really fun. I think it would be a unique. Speaking as someone who has written and directed a short film that is currently in post production, you know, a unique undertaking of a short film rather than a feature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
I
to do it
agree.
with, multiple times with the same actors. This must have been, these four must have been such a fun shoot
Mm-hmm.
with those sets and those costumes and how tight the dialogue is.
You know, what's funny is the only thing I can really think of with shorts is the anthology series, and most of them are horror.
Yeah.
And I like them, but I feel like it's something that doesn't have to be restricted really to horror, at least, popular. Like was it Halloween? Oh God, I can't even remember what it was. Trick or Treat, that's it. That's an anthology series. You get, Twilight Zones. You've got uh what are the other? Oh, VHS. That's one. Scott Derrickson directed one of those recently.
Scott
But yeah,
Derrickson.
I just don't see it for a lot of other genres, and there's no reason not to have it. I think it's a great platform or a format, I should say.
You know, Putt Putt, the student film that I shot over the
It
summer
is,
and am
yeah,
currently
horror film.
editing.
Yeah, I know.
As much as Ben wanted to do some rewrites and make it a horror film, set at a mini golf course, which you could make work, I'm sure.
I
It
mean, are you telling me that you ignored the scene where I said someone should, do a hole in one and just kill someone? Be like, that was a hole in one. I thought that was
I
cool.
like I like that you have the gory image of someone killing someone else with a
Well,
mini
striking
golf
the eye.
putter, and then you've got like a Marvel Studios in 2023 type dialogue of that was a real hole in one. Come on. Come on. I'm glad that Marvel is taking more care with its television series from now on with
Rewriting.
Thank
with
God.
with showrunners and, actual TV writers rather than
Who would have thought that that might work?
I think they started the AI train a little early.
well, we all saw Secret Invasion.
But did we want to?
It was
We
that's
wanted to
actually
at
the worst.
first, and then we got too far in.
Oh man, the first episode had me filled with hope.
Yeah,
I
that was
loved
actually the worst one because you have like the first 3 episodes, I feel like, where it's like, oh my God, people could be anybody, this like spy thriller
And
clandestine,
then
whatever. And then
immediately,
like superpowers. Everybody's got superpowers.
immediately
You,
becomes the
me,
worst possible thing.
I've got every superpower known to mankind. You've heard of it? I have it. Okay?
yeah, let me just get, Captain Marvel's everything with one Hulk arm and one Korg arm,
The most powerful superhero the world has ever known, the universe has ever
and
known.
now
And we can duplicate them.
with the reaction to that finale, I don't think we'll see Amelia Clark in that role ever again.
No, it's
I think
look,
they're just gonna we messed up, we're
what do you
done.
what do
I'd
you
be
do
okay
with a
with that.
character like that?
Not her
Like,
fault, but I'd be okay with that.
yeah, what do you do? It's just
You can't do anything.
all right. So we need to have the most powerful villain ever because we accidentally created this monster over here. Ant-Man, yeah, he's out. Like most of these characters, they're not going to do a thing. We might as well not even have them in the movie. Um,
But anyway,
yeah. But anyway, I think we're sort of
well, I was just
finished.
gonna say Putt Putt coming full
Hmm.
circle here.
Yep.
Uh sort of germinated as a vignette in a feature about these two characters, and the feature is vignette based, so you've got all of these different short stories that could work on their own, as Putt Putt does, as short films with the same characters, the same actors throughout. And if I ever get the chance to shoot that feature, which I hope I do, it'd be a ton of fun to put the same characters in different situations and treat each one like its own short film.
Yeah.
That's all I had to say. That's it.
My last comment will be I feel like the one guiding, strand with all these shorts is that they all, to a certain degree, have to do with life and death. Henry Sugar is about a guy living his life, realizing that he really wasn't fulfilled in his life, and then just does the same thing until his death, even seeing his death coming and still accepting it. That's similar to the Swan, I guess, in that I guess the idea is he knew he was going to die, and he decided to go out in a blaze of glory, choose death on his own terms. Um, and then you have Poison, a guy worried he's going to die, and then belittling everyone because they came to save him. Ratcatcher is obviously killing a bunch of rats. So there are some strands there, that guide them all together.
Yeah,
I'm sure you could put them together.
common thread.
I do think that is actually somewhat a good thing. I like to see a guiding strand behind something like this that's released essentially all at once. If they're completely like separate releases, it doesn't matter. But it did seem like they were releasing them essentially as one anthology movie, I guess. They're just separated by the release date.
Yeah. And that, 4-part anthology film only totals 90 minutes. So
Mm-hmm.
super watchable again in the 4 parts. Henry
And you can
Sugar's
watch them all by themselves. So
yeah. Henry Sugar is 39 minutes. The other 3 I think are 17 each.
mm-hmm.
Very, very watchable, very rewatchable. I know I'll definitely go back to all 4 at different times. Maybe even right now. I have a little bit of time before I go to bed tonight. So, if you are interested, and we highly recommend doing so, the wonderful story of Henry Sugar, the rat catcher, the swan, and poison, adapted from Roald Dahl, directed, written, and produced by Wes Anderson, all streaming on Netflix. They're short films. We liked them. We think you will too. We're off next week, but we'll see you in a couple weeks. Going from short films to probably the longest film we'll do this year, Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yes.
Yep.
Can't wait.
All right.
All right.
All right.
I'll see you boys on the other side of this 3.5 hour movie we're doing in a couple weeks.
All right.
Good
And to the
luck.
rest of you, have a good night.
Good night.